which was in which we saw Belal, the Bully Muhammad, get the unanimous decision victory over Vicente Luque in the UFC welterweight division. Remember, the two faced off in the UFC back in 2016, Luque earning a knockout victory in their very first round. But this time, Belal got the win by unanimous decision, earning a 49-46, 49-46, and 48-47 on the judges' scorecards. Let's discuss this fight. Omar, let me send it over to you first this time. What were your impressions of Belal? How do you think he looked this time out?
I thought Belal looked good. I want to know how many miles that kid ran leading up to that fight, because that boy was on his bike from minute one of that fight all the way through. He was not trying to get knocked out by Luque. He was not going to let it happen again. He was staying as far away from Luque's power as humanly possible. I think the one thing that I really took away from the fight as a whole was Belal's fight IQ and his timing. His timing off of his takedowns is disgusting.
Yep.
I mean, I find it super difficult to remember or think about many fighters that have that level of timing consistently to throw takedowns and get them. I mean, Luque was getting taken down not because Luque sucks at takedowns, but because there was the inevitable second that I think everybody is vulnerable to in the middle of a strike that Belal is able to just capitalize on a consistent basis. And I think he did it every round, if I'm not mistaken. And the pace that was set from the first minute was absolutely crazy, because Belal was fighting on his back foot, I feel like, most of that fight. It was an impressive performance when you consider that a lot of the things we talk about when it comes to being successful in a fight, forward pressure, keeping the guy on his back foot, all of those things were not really happening with Belal. And yet, he was very successful and very effective in his approach to that fight. Didn't get hit a lot, didn't get tagged a lot, although he did eat some shit in that fight. But it wasn't as clean as as in the first fight that they had, where he just completely essentially went out. And he was able to make his strikes land. He was able to kind of as Luque is waning in, he's able to crack him, move away, crack him, move away, crack him, move away, all along the fence. The lateral movement was exceptional. And as soon as you thought, Belal's just going to stay here and strike with him, boom, he goes for a leg, takes him down, and Bob's your uncle. I mean, Belal was able to basically keep him down most of the time that he took him down. I think towards the end of the fight, I want to say probably towards the fourth and the fifth round, Luque was having a little bit more success working his way back up again, and kind of resuming the fight. But early on, Belal was able to control that kid for the majority of the time once he got him down to the ground. I thought it was a very impressive performance from Belal, especially considering the outcome of the first time that they fought. And it does make me interested right away in a fight with Colby. I know everybody keeps calling out Colby, but the reality is Colby at this point is really the peak and sort of the standard for cardio fighting, right? Like, if you want to know how good a guy is and how much pace he can keep, how much he can go forward for 5 minutes straight, put him up against Colby. See if he can survive. Yeah. Because if he can beat the shit out of Colby, that's the real deal right there.
100%. Mark, let's bring you in here. Belal Muhammad last lost a fight in the UFC in early 2019 at the hands of Jeff Neal. Unbeaten since. He has won 7 of his past 8, including this last weekend against Vicente Luque. That one only being a no contest, not a loss. A no contest against Leon Edwards, which ended in an accidental eye poke, rendering Muhammad unable to continue. But my man is 21-3 overall as a pro. So what were your impressions of him keeping things rolling this past weekend against a very tough guy at welterweight in Vicente Luque?
I was really impressed by Belal Muhammad. I know there were not necessarily any huge moments of him like threatening or hurting Luque, but to take 4 rounds off a guy in Luque who is an absolute killer, who finishes everyone that he's put across from, including Belal the first time, is really impressive. Belal has gotten so good. Me and Omar have really similar takes here. He has gotten so good in 2 different ways. The first and most obvious is how much he has improved his wrestling. He had some beautiful shots in this one. The timing was chef's kiss perfect. But you couldn't adjust it by a nanosecond and make it more perfect, most of these takedowns. And other than one or two, Luque had no shot at stuffing any of them. The second way is that Belal has gotten so good at keeping guys off him. Like, we know the weaker aspect of his game is his striking, and no, he hasn't reached a point where, like, you're worried about him knocking you out necessarily, but he has raised his striking to a level that just keeps guys off him. It keeps them from truly exploiting that area. Like, if you told me Belal was going to have to fight the whole fight off his back foot, I never would have thought it would go well for him. But his movement just stops you from completely walking him down. He's got great timing on his check hooks that he throws out there and on his own lunges with like an elbow and things like that to mess up your rhythm and keep you honest. And he's gotten so much better with his defensive head movement, and he does just enough to stay safe and then sucker you in right when he's ready to take you down, and he kind of prevents you from ever being able to get into the range where you're going to tee off on him. So Luque tried his best to pressure Belal, to break down that defense and be able to pour it on him. And in round 3, he was kind of able to do that, and I think Luque was probably thinking, you know, I'm going to reach this point that he did reach in round 3, and then it's going to keep happening. But it didn't. You know, Belal just readjusted again, made him chase him a little bit, kept him honest enough, like I said, with some of those check hooks. And next thing you know, he's drawing him into another blast double. And Luque, frankly, just could not stuff enough takedowns. If he could have stuffed a couple more, maybe that's a fight that starts to look different. But he couldn't. Great fight from Belal. Great game plan. He clearly took rounds 1, 2, and 5. So Luque got 3. Even if you gave Luque 4, which I heard some people did, doesn't matter. Belal clearly won the fight, and he has lined himself up for a very, very big fight now.
Absolutely. I was just going to say that with this victory, Belal has notched quite a few high-level welterweight names on his record at this point. I already mentioned his outstanding professional record, and he really is knocking on the door of the upper echelon at welterweight. And welterweight itself is right now in a great place, very healthy place, the UFC welterweight division. Stacked rankings. When you're number 15 guy, and this is in the UFC rankings, not our own ranking system, ladies and gentlemen, just going off the UFC rankings, when your number 15 guy is as talented as a Shavkat Rakhmonov, things are going well for that division. That being said, Mark, let me stay with you here. Putting on the matchmaker hat yet again, what do you do next with Belal Muhammad?
So I think there's 3 options. The first 2 are Colby, who he called out, and Khamzat Chimaev, who he has kind of since called out on social media. But to me, it sounds like the UFC is going to match those 2 guys up. We were talking about that last week. It kind of still seems like that is the case. So if that's the case, I think the answer, as we also mentioned last week, is the third guy, which is Gilbert Burns. Yes, Burns is coming off a loss, and Belal's coming off a win. But if we're doing Usman Edwards and we're doing Colby Chimaev, that is the biggest fight Belal can get right now. I think Gilbert deserves a big opportunity like that. Dana apparently said the same thing to Gilbert about making sure he gets a big fight. And I think that fight works. Is it a little bit unfair to Belal? Maybe. But if he could ever beat a Gilbert Burns, you would not be able to deny him any longer at the top of that division. So that's where I would go.
Omar, agree, disagree? Any other names at the top of welterweight that you would want to see Belal match up with next?
I totally agree, and I don't think it's an unfair. Name to throw out there. I think, first of all, Gilbert Burns is above Vicente Luque, regardless of the fact that he lost. It's still fucking Gilbert Burns.
To clarify, I just meant unfair that Belal was probably thinking with a win here, he would need one more for a title shot, whereas if he beats Burns, he might still need another one for a title shot. That's all I meant.
Depends on how he beat Burns. To be honest, man, there's a lot of room there for a title shot right now at the top, at the upper echelon here. It's really ripe for the taking. Khamzat is right there because of the performances he's putting on. It's not even about the amount of fights that he's had. So
I guess it's true. If Colby ever turned back Chimaev and Belal beat Burns, it would probably be Belal that got the shot rather than Colby already. So yeah, it's true. It's true.
There's opportunity there for sure. But I think the Gilbert Burns fight is definitely a good fight. Stylistically, it's very interesting because it would seem like Burns would kind of have the edge there.
Yeah, I agree.
Like Belal kind of wanting to kind of play on the ground nowadays as much as he does. Gilbert Burns is liable to snatch a limb or catch him in something because his ground game is top notch. So It's definitely a very interesting fight. But if he can turn back Burns, man, he's got a real argument as far as I'm concerned for a title shot.
Yeah, absolutely. Now let's talk about the guy who came away from this weekend in the losing column, that being Vicente Luque. Omar, let me stay with you here. Looking at the welterweight rankings in the, he's still, I would consider him pretty upper echelon at welterweight. What would you want him to do next in terms of his next opponent?
I think at this point, I would probably give him a crack at one of the guys who are moving on their way up. Sean Brady, off the top of my head, would be one of the best guys to throw in there. Excuse me. Stylistically, that is a super interesting fight. Sean Brady is a monster, all things that we've seen. So it would be nice to have him test himself against somebody who's been a proven monster, somebody we know is a killer, dangerous from all angles. And the fact is, if Luque can turn back one of these rising young kids, that's a good argument for why he deserves to stay at the top 5. Give him another top 5 guy again, and we keep it rolling.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think Brady's a nice pick. Mark, do you have any other names or suggestions for where Vicente Luque might go from here to try to rebound?
I had the exact same answer. I originally wanted Magny to be the one to test Brady, but Magny is now booked against Shavkat. And frankly, this may be even better. I think it's a really must-make fight. The knock on Brady coming out of his last fight with Michael Chiesa was that he kind of didn't really fight and he more held him down. And you're going to have to fight against Vicente Luque. And I just think that would be a great style clash and a really good test for how good Brady is.
Absolutely. Nice. All right, gentlemen, let us keep on